Kalimera Adelphia Kiadelphez. Eloge Dovoniki Tanya Vadalo. Sana maging okay ang araw mo. Estoy vivo y sano, estoy bien. I have a few topics I would like to discuss with my valued viewers this morning. 在这感谢你对我一生的工作感兴趣。Ti amo omnis. Good morning. Thank you all very much for your interest in my life's work. I love you all, and I pray that your day is kind to you. Conscious parenting. Thank you for consciously parenting your child into a peaceful, loving human being. As conscious parents, we understand there are 4 fundamentals you do not need to wait for your children to be in school to teach them. Your language, counting to 10, basic shapes, basic colors. The shapes are the same all around the world. The colors are the same all around the world. The numerical law is the same all around the world. And then, of course, the languages are very much so personalized to the individual and the geography in which they live, which determines their language needs. Currently, a majority of the population has been bilingualized with one or more of the 4 significant languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, and Hindi. Regardless, English is the most widespread, and 67 countries of the world have accepted English as a second language. Thank you all for learning and respecting the English language, allowing us to continue to connect our world peacefully. If you do have a child that is developing the English language, even if English is your mother tongue, because again, we all need to know it so that we are all included in the world, I would like to suggest this book. It has a lot of strong morals. It's very direct. It's an easy read. It's a little lengthy for a children's book, but that can be good. Thank you for reading with your child. If you do consciously prioritize the time to teach your child those 4 fundamentals prior to going to school, they will have a more mature understanding getting to school and can be a good example for their classmates, and additionally help their teacher, because we all know our teachers have a big job maintaining the focus and teaching our children. God bless all of the teachers that we have. They're facing some big challenges now as well. So, if you have a mother tongue that is modernly bilingual, well, you need to be reasonable in your expectation of your child's language development based on the geography in which you live in. We need to maintain mother tongues as we progress with the English language. If you take the time to teach your children those fundamentals, it is guaranteed to develop a very strong bond between the child and the parent. If your child has their mother tongue stamped on their heart in that way, they still need to be practical in their language development to the geography in which they live. But with that connection always comes the possibility to rediscover personal origins at a later, more mature stage of life, which can be very liberating for humans to experience, especially at a time when their children are grown and they find themselves with just themselves to focus on. So thank you all again for learning and respecting the English language, and also for consciously parenting your child into a peaceful, loving human being. Now, in reference to languages, I am speaking several languages very well. Mu arese polimi linika, anisi hoya tontonomo, exero ime kalos milotas alinika. I really love speaking Greek. I worry about my tone since I don't have authentic speakers, but I know I'm really good at it because when I speak to my app, I get the exact result that I'm looking for, so I have no reason to believe that the authentic speakers would not understand me. Everybody knows I love speaking Mandarin. I can say a lot. But I'm not fluent. Fluency requires speaking, listening, reading, and comprehension skills. So obviously that takes time and dedication. I need time, but I know I can do it. Now, Mandarin is more difficult for me to learn than Greek. 我知道为什么. I know why. 因为英语是我的母语, because English is my mother tongue. Mandarin and English are like polar opposites. There's nothing the same. So that makes that particular language more difficult for me to absorb and requires more of my time than Greek, because English has a lot more connection to the Greek language than the Mandarin language. And since I've been learning Spanish, Español está fácil para mí. Sé por qué. Spanish is easy for me, and I know why. And de nuevo, ya parle. Again, because English is my mother tongue. English and Spanish are like best friends. They have a lot in common, but they're not the same. So if you're coming to English from Spanish, you still have to put the work in. And obviously, you can still learn it, but it's not the same mental process as starting with Mandarin and coming to English. A lot of Greek people will lean more on Spanish, but still understand English, because once a people are bilingualized, well, a third language isn't that much of a stretch of the imagination. But you can understand how, if you only needed to learn one language and never learned a second language, well, if you don't need to, you might not want to, and you don't have to, as long as you have the significant language, you're not going to be left out of the world. But you could see how if you did only have one language, speaking 3 languages would sound next to impossible for you. But if you've been modernly bilingualized 3 languages isn't that big of a deal. So a lot of people will have 3 languages in that way, and English is a lot of the times included in those 3. Now, in becoming fluent in a language, which you don't need to be fully fluent to enjoy a language and include a language, the concept of not knowing it at all and just knowing it all is not a reasonable concept either. So you got to take your time and enjoy the process of learning. But in the comprehension process, if you're starting with English or Spanish or any of the languages that share that alphabet, you're going to need to lean on Pinyin to get started. Pinyin is not the language, it's a representation of the language so that people that don't know the language can learn it. And Pinyin is based on the most common alphabet, which is the same alphabet used in English and Spanish and Filipino and a lot of languages around the world. But then when you make the move from Pinyin to authentic print, well, as an English speaker that has already been doing that process in several languages, the English alphabet, as I'll refer to it as, although English doesn't own it, it's very basic, simple shapes, and that is a good thing, and it is part of the reason why English is so successful. So when you start looking at authentic prints, there are certain authentic prints that are going to be very confusing to you in the beginning. Now, the Mandarin authentic print is very complicated to a mind that has started with the English language. However, Mandarin people face the exact same struggle coming to English because a human is a human. The process is the same. You may think it's different because you don't have to speak Mandarin. Not many people learn Mandarin. However, Mandarin people do need to learn English in order to be included in the world, since not many people do learn Mandarin. And as difficult as you may think it would be to learn Mandarin from English, that's exactly how Mandarin feel coming to English, but they don't have a choice. They have to. So they do need you to be sensitive to that. Now, in reference to coming to the authentic prints, again, as someone that has been doing it, when I use Greek authentic print and compare it to my Pinyin, well, it'd be very logical that the Greek authentic print is a lot easier for me to absorb than the Mandarin authentic print, because the alphabet that I have in my mother tongue is derived from the Greek language, and a lot of the letters that we have in the English alphabet are either present or very similar to the characters in Greek language, and nothing at all like Mandarin or Hindi or a lot of the Indian languages. And if you're going to one of the Indian languages, the language appears to be very swirly at times, and it's really difficult to understand how it is a language going from the Pinyin to the authentic print. But Hindi is the national language of India, and English has had a large impact on the development of Hindi, and there are no tone markers or anything like that on the Hindi pinyin. So additionally, the Indian people are very used to just leaning on English to be connected, because in India, you don't really know what languages an individual has or to what degree which they develop them, but they generally know English. So the lack of tone markers and stuff like that on Hindi pinyin, a lot of Indian people will just text and use the pinyin because they're doing English and Hindi, and they don't have to use any tone markers or worry about any of that. They don't feel the need to text in their authentic print. In Canada, I can only speak from my own experience, obviously. So you could see how the Mandarin authentic print would be more confusing to an English speaker than the Greek or a lot of the Indian authentic prints. And another thing that is very different in that way is with Greek, if you do learn the pinyin, there isn't a whole lot of the same sounds meaning different things. English has a lot of that, like two, two, and two, interest and interest. There's a lot of that going on in English, and there is a fair amount of that in Mandarin. Now, if you're learning Mandarin pinyin, you may see SHI to she or sure. There's different pronunciations of it based on the tone marker, but it's still SHI with a different tone marker because it very much so does sound that similar. The tone marker very much so does indicate which one it is, along with the other words in the sentence, similar to two, two, and two. As an English speaker, you will hear the whole sentence and just apply the proper meaning to it. And Mandarin does the same, but when you're learning Mandarin through pinyin, you may think, I thought SHI meant this, but you have to remember that's not your alphabet. That's not their alphabet. And when you do go to the authentic print, well, that SHI with this tone marker looks a certain way in the authentic print, but another SHI with a different tone marker authentically doesn't look the same. So you could see how if you were reading it with the expectation from English, you may get confused by she, but when you're reading Mandarin with the authentic print, that's not an issue. And that is a large reason why it's important that we maintain the authentic print from Mandarin, because it's crucial to its understanding, and it does play a role into why Mandarin generally has the subtitles on screen. There's a lot of different versions of Mandarin and different understandings of Mandarin when you're down in the China area. So it does help solidify a direction of language for them and an understanding. 我理解需要 对不起 I understand the need for it. And so you could see how the Greek authentic print would be a lot easier to absorb as an English speaker. However, if you're going to another language, you can choose a language that has the same alphabet as you if you're starting with English or Spanish or Filipino or any of the languages that share that alphabet. For example, if you go English to Spanish or English to Filipino, there's no concerns of the difference in alphabet or tone markers, really. And additionally, since the skills are all very separate, and ultimately, if you're learning a language, it's to communicate with people. So if you don't want to uphold a responsibility to the authentic print, the authentic speakers will still be feeling respected if you can speak it and you can learn how to speak it from the pinyin. They won't even really have to know if you can read the authentic print, if you can speak it and understand it, to have it spoke back to you. So those are some thoughts to help proper language development. You don't need to be fluent in a language to include it in your life and expand your own language maturity. And as you do, you will be slowly developing that language over time without any pressures of fluency, because you're learning it because you enjoy it. English and Spanish currently seem to be the most useful languages due to how widespread they are. It makes them more useful on the understanding that you can go to more areas of the planet and use those two languages and have a greater possibility of being understood by the locals. By including languages in that way and developing your own language development, you will notice a difference when speaking to individuals that you know have learned English as a second language. Now, the people that have learned English as a second language, they know the area they're in. They know that other people don't have to learn their language and haven't, and they don't expect them to. They just want to be understood. They just want to be included in the world, and they don't really think anything of it. And out of language maturity, they're going to approach you, if you're an English speaker, and just talk to you in English. And they don't have any feelings about it. It's just a language, and they know it. And they want you to know what they're saying. They're not going to speak their mother tongue. And additionally, for me, something that has been happening is, for example, if I'm at work and I'm studying one language and an individual comes into my work that I know speaks a different language that I'm studying and a different language than English, I don't even really consciously do it anymore. I just speak to them in their language. As a quick example, this week past, I was at work singing along with some Greek music, and a delivery driver came in and kind of scared me. And when I popped up and looked at him, he was an Indian brother. And without really thinking about it, I stopped singing in Greek. But when I addressed him, I just spoke Hindi. And he scared me. He said, "Oh, maaf karna." And that means sorry in Hindi. And I started talking Hindi to him. And when I made my way back to get the order he was there for, I realized what had happened. And by switching gears from Greek to Hindi to just naturally speak to him in Hindi, well, that's the exact same language maturity he would have held when he came in and spoke English to me. But since I am learning Hindi, he is happy to assist me in that way. But you could see how, in that example, it's just an increased language maturity once you actually learn the language. You just speak the language you know they know. It's not really personal, and you don't expect people to know your mother tongue if they don't have to. But again, to be united as humans, peacefully and modernly, we need to be understood, and that's where proper language development of our world is very necessary in modern times, because now that humans have developed a world language like English and significant languages like Spanish, Hindi, and Mandarin, well, we need to use that to our advantage, because all that work wasn't for nothing. And in that, we can continue to share messages of peace, love, and acceptance of all nature and all living things, inclusive but not restricted to other human beings. And in that, peace can still exist. I do have a significant situation when it comes to language learning. It does have to do with my food and my lifestyle. I believe that would be intuitionally understood, although possibly mentally expansive. If you are able to accept that concept and offer me some respect for that, I really appreciate your respect. And I respect you as a creature of nature. And again, I thank you for learning English. Since you have understood everything I've said in this video, and I hope it's useful to you. So, in conclusion of this video, I am going to focus on the brain video. Now, I'm going to start focusing on my brain video, and I'm praying I can get that together and posted before I lose my home at the end of the month. I would like to suggest another book. This is a great read. This is a great read, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to be like a spoiler. But if you need to learn more about how your consumption is affecting your own brain, this is a great read. And if you think that the foods you eat and the drinks that you include do not affect your brain, I'm very sorry, but that is a very naive perspective. Your brain is very much so just another moist organ within your body. You can understand that your food choices will affect your liver, and you can understand how your drink choices can affect your stomach, and you need to be able to make an exact correlation to your own brain, except the brain is far, far more important to maintain, because these organs, like your liver can survive and be very, very small if you abuse it enough. Your brain does not have that option. However, the dehydration process is the dehydration process. So your liver will dehydrate and weaken with your food choices and your drink choices. And your brain is not exempt from those processes, and is very much so depending on you as the living creature to keep the dehydrating products out, keep the hydrating products in. And if you as an individual do that for yourself, it doesn't matter what your spouse or your child or anybody else on the planet says or does. If you do that for yourself, your brain will have the hydration and function to be a very strong, useful organ that is going to improve the quality of your life. eating that way isn't going to necessarily earn you any currency. And people around you may not respect you for it, but you will be increasing your quality of your perception. And regardless what other human on the planet can or cannot respect you for your efforts, nature will. And in that, you won't really care if other people believe you or do it too, because you just don't want to lose nature's respect. Because by respecting nature, nature respects you. And when nature respects you, once again, your quality of life can go up on the understanding that we are creatures of nature, not the other way around. And nature will always be here, even if we're not. So in that, it's vitally important that we eat and drink like creatures of nature to maintain that perspective that I am trying very desperately to share amongst the population, which again I can due to the development of the English language. Gracias a Dios por este momento. Mujhe jana chahe. Trote kala kia parlamente I siodakse. I gotta go. Eat well and feel good today. Thank you all very much for your time and interest. Zaisa, I love you all. Elini achapi kiethetiki and alase olus. Gracias Deo. Te veo pronto, amigos.